I do think that meal plans on a certain level are helpful, but long-term harmful is kind of my thought process. Um, Reason being is they don't teach you what to do when you're out in the wild. And that's just kind of an opportunity for people to really true have sustainability in whatever results they're looking for.
Welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition. And today we have a very juicy topic that a lot of people are wondering. Do you need a meal plan when it comes to your nutrition? I mean, Steve, hot and heavy. What do you think? Hot out of the gates, what do you got?
So you and I are, I feel like we're going to not disagree, because I think that both sides are valid here. And I think you're 100% right with what I know you're going to say, or I'm anticipating you're going to say. But
I have to do a hard left turn.
just to fuck with everybody. I do think that meal plans on a certain level are helpful, but long-term harmful is kind of my thought process. Reason being is they don't teach you what to do when you're out in the wild. And that's just kind of an opportunity for people to really true have sustainability in whatever results they're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, my hot take is that nutrition is encompassing not just of the food itself, but the environment, how you consume it. Like, there's a lot of things that go into nourishing your body appropriately. So with that out of the way, like, we understand that generally speaking, there's two different paradigms of dieting. You can have flexible dieting, which is like kind of if it fits your macros, you pick your food sources, like, people that 80-20 principle that we briefly touched on in a previous episode. And so it's kind of more of a laissez-faire, just do what works for you within the parameters that you're given. And then you have something that's more rigid dieting, which is where a meal plan would fit in. You have to eat this at this time if you want this outcome. And I think that exactly what you're saying, it can be helpful to be rigid, but at the end of the day, I think that in a perfect world from a long-term health perspective, we probably want people to know what feels good for them. And if they have no basis for what's normal and how they should feel because they have no structure, they have no idea on how to scaffold their own eating cycles, then I'd say that meal plan can be pretty helpful from that perspective.
I think it also really depends on the person's goals and how aggressive with the goals they want to be.
Yeah.
I know for me, if I'm making sure I'm hitting my targets way more and tracking, the goal is way more attainable, way more quickly, way more in line with what I need. Whereas when I'm not, then it's like, all right, I'm close, but like, might be a little tired, didn't eat enough carbs, probably over-consumed a little bit on the fat side of things. Usually pretty good about hitting my protein. But from that perspective, I know it does add on a little bit of time. So there's also that balance too.
Yeah. And so when people comes to, kind of triaging and creating this from a prioritization schedule, you almost want to figure out, well, what are your big rocks? What are your big priorities? What are your timelines? What are your deadlines? The more you deviate from the plan, because maybe you fall off 20% of the week, or maybe you're really good Monday through Friday. And we see this a lot with people. They have their work schedule. They have, stuff that is regimenting their environment. And now on the weekends, they're like, I'm just going to, I've earned it. And like the 20% turns into about 30% of the calories come from 2 days in the weekend. And it really derails the whole process. So if people are not really being as stringent or as accountable to those outcomes in the process, that's where on time-related and time-bound goals, when we're thinking about SMART goals, it really just doesn't align with having something that's a little more laissez-faire or intuitive eating for people, especially the uninitiated, that maybe have never done a cut or a bulk or something along those lines. So, I mean, to flip it on its head for a second, when you think about meal plans, like maybe we just talk about what that is for a second and what you associate that with.
Kind of like you said, here's how much of exactly what to eat every day, maybe of a 7-day meal plan, some version thereof, but it is literally just super, call it direct, restrictive maybe on this is it. And the negative, so Jen, she was given a meal plan as she was going through things, and she got the result that was supposed to be given to her.
Yeah.
The moment there was no more meal plan, wild west. And it was because she didn't learn any of the habits that needed to be learned throughout. There was no ability to, I have this thing and I can replace it with this or this or this and understand what that was like. And that's some of the negatives and drawbacks there, but it is just a literally on a piece of paper or app or whatever, rigidity of this is what you eat, nothing else.
Yeah. One, you know, when you talk about being effective, I think that the other thing that most people don't consider is the prep time or the creative fatigue that comes with like constantly having to curate a menu. Well, I know what I have for breakfast is listening to cereal. For lunch, you know, I might go to Chipotle, I might go to whatever the place is. We'll take some of that Chipotle. But, you know, when you start thinking about where these things and kind of the freedom to choose, it really can be an overwhelming thing, which causes some people to shut down and just go for whatever's most convenient, or to delay the decision until now it's something that's just, they're so hungry that they don't care. And when we talk about food quality, or basically like micronutrient density, vitamins, minerals, stuff like that, they're going to choose maybe a couple slices of pizza or the whole pizza over, you know, having something like a chicken Caesar salad or something like that. So I think that it can be helpful from you're going to eat this many times this week. This is what you need to do to prepare that. And if you do it enough, it's kind of like a workout. You get used to preparing that thing. And so when people take that creative fatigue, I don't have to worry about it. This is what I'm eating. And they branch it off and they cycle through that. Sometimes that can actually really help alleviate some anxiety around like, I don't know how to hit these, which I think actually might not be the worst idea when people are just getting started. Like, hey, here's a couple meal ideas, piece them together how you want. And I think that's actually a pretty good blend between rigid and flexible dieting practices.
Yeah, I mean, with AI today, that's a really useful tool, that giving it parameters of what you want to help build your, like, here's what I'm going to eat today. It does a really good job as long as you understand the call it guardrails for the day. And that's a great way to give yourself, call it guidance, but also you can wake up every other day and like, hey, I want to do something different today. I do like, and it gives you that. And that's always something that's just kind of, if a friend asks me for something now at this point in time, that's typically my suggestion. Like, I'm not giving you a meal plan, but I'll give you the tools you can use to build your own meal plan.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, when we talk about what goes into making a meal plan for the people that don't really quite understand, and they hear this word thrown out a lot, and they're like, okay, well, what is a meal plan? I think I need one of those. I think I need to know what to eat, when I need to eat it. And frankly, most people, and I will say like 90% of people, don't achieve the goal they set out to. And so if we say that and we attribute that to confusion, lack of accountability, poor structure, poor systems, like, we want to minimize those as much as possible. And so when we think about how to build a meal plan in a perfect world, and this is just, let me be very clear, unless you're a registered dietitian, you are not allowed to prescribe a meal plan to people, and you are certainly not allowed to use nutrition to alleviate any kind of health condition someone might be experiencing. That's beyond your scope of practice. And if you are trying to help someone with their thyroid, or do, you know, a FODMAP diet or some of these advanced dieting protocols, and you're doing that to help someone's gut health, and you're not a GI or a gastroenterologist or a dietitian, you're opening yourself up to some pretty significant legal risk. And that's something that, you know, just to clarify, you can give people ideas, but when you say you have to eat this at this time, there are certain credentials required, especially when it comes to special populations. So make sure you check your local statutes in your state, and make sure that, you know, you don't open yourself up to unnecessary lawsuits or litigation. But what goes into creating a meal plan, you need to understand what your needs are physically, and then you need to understand what the nutrient needs are, and then that's where you craft menu items. I mean, that's pretty much it. It sounds pretty simple, but when we talk about calculating your macros, we talk about figuring out your micros. Obviously, I would work with a coach.
Sweet potatoes over rice.
Sweet potatoes do have more vitamin A, yes, but they do have less, you know, resistant starch. So it's kind of a trade-off in that perspective. If you don't know, go back to one of the earlier episodes. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? But looking at those, you can break those apart a lot of different ways. I mean, obviously, you know, with you being a couple inches taller and a couple pounds heavier, like, we're going to have different nutritional needs, which is why a meal plan, when it's templated and given out, doesn't work. I used to work at a place, actually I shouldn't name this place, but it was a brick and mortar facility. They did high intensity interval training stuff. It wasn't CrossFit. And they did a 6-week challenge, and it was actually the Hormozi challenge whenever he rolled those out. They came out with meal plans. They had 3 meal plans, big, medium, or small, basically, is my understanding or interpretation of that. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then you would give those out during people's weigh-ins. They wouldn't work. And then halfway through, they would say it was a free challenge. They made you fork up $500, and they said on the back end, at halfway, if you hit your goal, we'll give you your money back. No one was going to hit their goal because no one had the individualized guidance that was best for them. So they're doing a generic plan, which if you do general things, you'll get unpredictable results. So these people would then parlay that into their first month of dues or whatever. And that's kind of how they use that to bridge people that weren't members into participating and then joining their gym because they already spent the money. And so when I say that, it's more of a cautionary tale of like, what works well for one person may not necessarily work well for another person. It could, but when you start taking it 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, it just doesn't work as well. So it sounds like you've had some experience with that.
Oh yeah, I mean, the angry people, the frustrated people, all that stuff. And it's, you know, at the end of the day, the reality of those meal plans was if you gave the right person the right small, medium, large meal plan, I think it actually would have worked if they followed it. But because there was no, what do you like, what don't you like, how to replace to it, that became the massive issue. Like I remember having a conversation with somebody about how they just hated egg whites, and I dislike egg whites as well. I get it. So they wouldn't do the actual meal plan at all. And then they didn't get the results and like, oh, the meal plan didn't work, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, you didn't use the meal plan. Good or bad, indifferent, you didn't use it.
Yeah.
And, you know, 10 years ago, you didn't have AI to help reconstruct it and all those components.
That was 10 years ago.
Maybe 9, but yeah.
I think it was like 2016, 2017 when I had that experience. That's crazy. That's almost a decade. But yeah, I mean, things have definitely evolved. Things are getting increasingly sophisticated. If you're trying to wonder what your nutritional recommendations are, find a coach. It's the easiest way to do it. Find a qualified coach, I should say, because not everyone's going to, if someone just gives you macros and that's all, and they don't explain why or how they got there or how to successfully hit those macros, and they don't ask you necessarily about your vitamins, your minerals, or talk supplementation, if that's appropriate, then I would suggest that maybe that's not the person that you hire. Even if they get people great physical results, sometimes those physical results aren't very sticky. In the back end, we don't see that they gain significant weight back because maybe they did something extreme to lose that weight. But I mean, yeah, wrapping up the meal plans here, I think that we've really beat a dead horse. We talked about what they are. We've kind of rehashed what you should look for inside of a meal plan to make sure it's best for you. Any closing notes for people to think about when it comes to something potentially rigid or off-putting as?
So as a coach, my suggestion would be, like, if you're a coach, don't build meal plans for people, whether you are considering that to be in scope or out of scope, regardless, for the most part. If it's in scope and you have a very specific instance or whatever, and you're going to build it, like, fine. But I'm talking about 80% of the population in a generalized sense. I would give them the guide on how to take whatever structure you give them, the framework you give them, to build their own meal plan should they want it. So, and a great marketing tool would be building out a multi-page prompting guide with AI to go ahead and use with the structure to then turn that into the meal plan that somebody wants and whatnot, right? And foods I like, the foods I don't like, the foods that make me feel good, the foods that don't make me feel good, the blah, 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 blahs, right? Make sure I get this many fibers and this much waters and all the things. That would be kind of my approach today with the tools at hand, but I would give them the tools to build their meal plan. I wouldn't build the meal plan for or even with them per se, just to make sure that, hey, I gave them guidance, but they did their thing.
Yeah, I think those are great assertions. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, the meal plan serves as a way for people to feel like they know what to do. And there's a lot of simple ways that you can build a plate with. And we talked about a lot of coulds, we talked about a lot of cautions, but I think at the end of the day, like, if you focus on just building a plate, that's well, meaning like break it up into thirds. You have a third of your plate is starches, like white rice or like any kind of potato, rice, yada, yada. And then you break a third of it into plants and a third of it into proteins. And then you add some dietary fat in there, usually like a thumb size or two. That's probably a pretty healthy meal for most people. And if you do that consistently, you'll probably have decent results, quite frankly, as long as it's not, gonna wildly disrespect your calorie needs and cause you to gain weight. Because I'm sure you can figure out, you can put 3 pieces of pizza on a plate. You can have a meat lovers, you can have a vegetarian one, and you can have
there's tomato sauce on pizza.
There's tomato sauce. It's vegan sometimes. That diet cheese is pretty good, although it's terrible. So, But yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say about meal plans. Great tool potentially in the right use case. So we hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, anything that you think we can help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out, because if you're dealing and struggling with stuff, you're only staying stuck if you don't ask for help. So make sure you smash that subscribe button. Share this with someone that's been asking for a meal plan but hasn't been making progress. And we will see you guys in the next episode of Beyond the Pump, where we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition.